Director of College Planning at MEFA. And I said to the earlier group, I know I have a few repeat customers, which is good, that I have been doing this work for close to 30 years. Feels funny to say, but I started out my career in a financial aid office, and I was a director of financial aid. Then I worked in that for maybe 13 years or so in financial aid. Then I worked for a couple of student loan organizations. Then I worked for the College Board before coming to MEFA about 10 years ago. And so I have just been working with families for most of that time, working with students for a while, and then now mostly at MEFA I've been working with parents, just helping them plan and figure out how they're going to send their kids to college. And I love it, and I love to just share, all that I know that will help you make a plan. And being here in the early college planning session means, probably your kids are a little bit younger and you have time to make a plan, so that's terrific. And so what I'll encourage, and you'll see this, is just having a loose plan will significantly help you when you get to that point of sending your kids to college. So I guess I'll ask, just age-wise, so who has, does anyone have juniors or seniors? Okay. And then how about 10th grade? And how about 9th grade? Middle school? Okay. Elementary school? My smile gets bigger. And babies. Who has a baby? Great. So, for a long time in my career, one of the things we have done at MEFA does presentations all over Massachusetts. And for a long time, the main type of our presentation was the quote-unquote financial aid night that we did for parents of seniors. We still do that. But just year after year, I would present to parents in the fall of the student's senior year, and I still do it, and just see all the parents with deer in the headlights looks as I'm saying, this college costs $50,000, this college costs $40 and $60, and if people didn't have a plan or don't have a plan, and there are still plenty of people who don't, it's scary, and it's anxiety producing. Their kids, if they want them to and their kids want to still go to college too, but there's a lot of stress that goes with it, and maybe some choices that they can't take advantage of and things like that. We're lucky that we have so many options and choices that no matter what, students can always find their path. But to maximize choices, options, all of that, the earlier you start, the better. So I'm glad you're here. Now I'll just tell you a little more about MEFA because we have an hour or less together, and you'll see by the way I'm talking, I can talk for 6 days about this stuff. So just so you know, we'll touch on everything, we'll answer your questions, and let's keep it interactive. But you can also have an additional resource here to continue to learn and all the way along. So a few things that you can do with MEFA is we have savings plans, and we're going to talk about those especially today, the U plan and the U fund. We also have private loans if families need that type of financing when their students are in college. But everything else we do is we are a free resource for families at every stage. So go to our website. You can call us, you can email us, we have webinars, we have podcasts now, so you can connect with us in whatever ways that you want to continue to learn about this. One of the really nice services that I like is if you go to our website and sign up for our email curriculum, you just give us your email address and the ages of your children, and twice a month we send you an email that just, is stuff you can be doing at that stage. So you can imagine 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, those emails are chock full of all the steps for your child to apply to college and how you're going to finance. When your children are younger, it's sometimes about choosing courses, good books to read, so there are lots of things. And then a lot about some concrete things you can be doing, like saving. We'll talk a lot about saving today. So connect with us, and that's great. So we'll talk about the importance of college, which I think you already know, so I don't have to get into that too much. And then we're going to talk about college costs, affordability, how families are paying for college today, and then some strategies that you can use. And we will talk about the U-funded U-plan. So basically, you know this, and that's why you're sitting in here instead of one of the other wonderful sessions out there. But basically, students in 2016 and in the future really need to go on from high school. And it doesn't mean that they need to, it doesn't mean one thing, that they have to go get a 4-year degree, you know, living away on a grassy campus. It can mean many, many things, but really for a student to have a lot of choices for employment, and more so than just employment, but protection against unemployment, they really need to go on after high school. So really, when we're talking about these futures, it's everything that's after high school, post-secondary. And not only will that be good for them professionally, but there's so much evidence that going on after high school really expands their lives in many ways, health-wise and community-wise, all of that. And I do like to point out this as well, that college is a lot of different things. So it can be, you know, 4-year private institutions, 4-year publics, 4-year out-of-state public institutions. I love to talk about 2-year community colleges because I feel like in the rest of the country, a lot of students start at the community college level and then get their associate's degree, transfer to a 4-year institution. In New England, Massachusetts, we're a little snobby about that. We just are. And I think it's just because of the large number of institutions, both public, private especially, and public that we have around here. But one thing I really want to point out, this mass transfer that I say there, I put up there, and also a new program called Commonwealth Commitment here in Massachusetts, is there are really affordable ways that students can get a public education here in Massachusetts, starting at the community college level, getting automatic admission then to a 4-year school, and if they keep a certain grade point average, actually getting tuition discounts during those last 2 years at a 4-year institution, even UMass Amherst. So if you go on the website of Commonwealth Commitment or Mass Transfer, you can just learn about, there are all these different options. And I like to point that out because that's not common conversation. The common conversation that I hear at the summer backyard cookout is, you know, oh, Julie, how can all these schools charge $65,000 and, you know, how, I have 4 kids, is it even worth it? How can I do that? So, you know, we're overwhelmed by certain ways of thinking about this, but there are just many options. And so just all the way along as your kids grow and you get to know them better, you get to know their interests, and they have their own goals, be aware of all the different options. There'll be more, you know, when your kids are going to college. So wide range of options. But it's good to plan for no matter what. Yes?
When you talk about the 2-year community college option, so it's 2-year community college plus 4 years in a regular school, or they get credits from?
They get credits, and that's such a good point. So it's 2 years at a community college, transfer automatically to a 4-year public institution in the state, and again with possible tuition reductions if they keep a certain GPA. And the other piece that the Massachusetts has spent a lot of time working on is making sure that those credits transfer. And there are now requirements that the most number of credits that they would have to repeat would be 6. Because for a long time, that wasn't all aligned. And it still takes some work, because in certain programs, students have to take certain courses and have to pay attention to that. But in general, there's been a lot of work done to align that so much better. So this is just another way of showing that income piece, that with increased levels of college, I'll call it college, increased potential earnings, but then again, even more so, increased protection against unemployment. In the more recent recession, most of the higher unemployment rates were tied to people who didn't have a college degree, and people with a college degree really had lower unemployment rates. And this just, shows other things about a student who goes on to higher education, which is job satisfaction. And we know that anecdotally anyway, that, if you're in a job that you love, there's more job satisfaction, and if it was part of your career plan and all, you're gonna be happier. So the other piece is just that cost of college piece that makes us all want to fall off our chair when we think about all of that. And those again are the numbers we keep hearing, but we hear it because they're the large numbers of everything. They're tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation. So there are ways to keep that a little bit lower if student commutes versus goes away to college, all of that. And there are ways to keep it lower depending on the type of institution. And what we'll get into also is that there's financial aid for all of this. So that price that we're hearing, most people don't pay that, what some people call the sticker price of higher education. There's, depending on need, depending on your students' academics and all of that, there are ways that parents pay less than that. So financial aid that's out there is really three types: grants and scholarships, which is the best type. It's money that's just awarded to students, they don't repay it. Sometimes students can get work study as a type of aid, meaning they get a job on campus and they're able to pay their miscellaneous expenses. And there is, student loans are also considered as a type of financial aid. That's not all loans, but specific federal student loans that have limits, fixed low interest rates, options for how they repay that. So certain types of loans are considered a type of financial aid. And while students should always be cautious about borrowing, and we want to be cautious for our students that they're not going to be burdened for years and years to come, if students do want to attend some of the high-cost private institutions, they might have to borrow a student loan, and yet that can be manageable within how they pay for college. And so then, basically, when it comes time to paying for college, here's how you will pay for college. Here's how people pay for college today. You'll apply for financial aid and hopefully receive some. Your family, your student will receive some financial aid. We'll talk about how. And then, other than that, you're going to use any past income, savings, assets that you have. You'll probably use some of your present income. Both parents working, one parent working. All colleges have monthly payment plans, so you can pay some of that bill on a monthly basis. And maybe future income. Maybe you'll borrow a loan. Maybe your student will take some of that financial aid type of a loan, but maybe you'll have to borrow a loan. Maybe you'll take a home equity loan, maybe you'll borrow an education loan. But the bottom line is, everyone, except, there is an exception, some people have another family member who is able to help your kids, and that's fabulous. But other than that piece, all of you are going to pay for college using all of these sources. You'll just do them differently depending on how much you have in savings, what your income is, and if you want or can borrow. But most parents that I know, especially parents who have multiple children and are sending kids to college over multiple years, end up doing kind of a mix of all of this. The key that I'm going to talk about, which is the past income and savings, is that the more you have here, the less pressure you will have with your current income while you're sending them to college or with having to borrow. So it's just sort of setting yourself up, knowing that you're probably going to do all of that to send your kids to college, but you want to give yourselves the most options and choices and ability to help, and giving yourself the least stress. So, I'd like to just show this slide as one example of, say there's a $10,000 college cost, everyone's going to pay for college over time, basically. But if you're able to save for that and earn some interest to pay that $10,000 college cost, you'll end up spending a lot less than if you don't save and you borrow a loan, and then you'll be paying interest. So either way, you're sort of spreading out the college cost. But the more you can do on the front end, the better off you'll be. So one thing that is helpful just to look at and play around with, if you have really young kids, you probably don't need to do all this yet, but as your kids get a little bit older, is just to, instead of just hearing those college costs, this costs $60,000, $40,000, is to use some of these calculators. There are net price calculators on every college website that if you put in information about your family and your student, they'll give you a sense of the type of financial aid that might be available. And then there are some more generic ones that aren't as specific to a certain school, but just general EFC calculators that would give you a sense of, oh, if our income and assets and all stays relatively the same, okay, we might be expected to contribute $20,000 a year toward college costs, or $5,000 or $60,000, whatever it may be. So it's just not a bad idea to have some of those numbers in your head as you're trying to make a plan. And then these websites, College Navigator and College Scorecard, are websites that give you a lot of in-depth information about colleges. And one of the pieces of information they give is how much financial aid is awarded to students, what percentage of students receive aid, and in what income bands. So, for example, if you go and look up Tufts on College Navigator, it will show you that if your income is between this range or this range or this range, what the actual cost. The cost might not be 60 to you, but it might be 40 or 20 or so. Those are just sites to get your mind thinking about it. And what I would really say is, I am all about calming us all down about this. I can tell you from 28 years of experience, I've seen thousands of families send their kids to college. You know, we can do this, and we can help our students to put themselves in the best position to do that. It seems a lot scarier when you're sort of looking at it en masse. So anyway, have these things sort of educate you and help you with it, not freak you out. So for example, this Fidelity College Savings Calculator, I think it can be a useful tool, but if you go in and say, I'm interested in sending my student to Boston College, and they're going to go to college in 2028, it will tell you a projection of what Boston College will cost in 2028. And that can do one of two things. It can light a fire under you to do all the stuff I'm going to talk about in a minute, say, geez, I got to get on that, or it could just totally freak you out because it's a number that seems so large. So I would say use these calculators to motivate you to put a loose plan in place, and just don't let them freak you out because it's just not helpful that way. That's sort of the iceberg is not helpful. Chunk it out. And this is just that college scorecard showing how you can compare colleges and look at lots of different information. Now, so I talk a lot about financial aid. My whole last session was about financial aid, how you'll apply for financial aid, and hopefully that will help with some of the costs. And then I turn around and I talk to everyone about what I think is so critical, which is saving for college. And when I do that, if I don't have this slide up there, there's someone in the audience who always raises their hand and says, but why should I save? Isn't that just going to hurt me, and won't I just receive less financial aid? Now, is there anyone who's just sort of thought that up until now? Everyone thinks that. And what it does is sometimes it either stops people from deciding to save at all, or even if you just think that might be the case, it has people postpone until you really, 10th grade really freak out. So it's a common thought, and it makes sense that you would think that. But I'm going to show you a couple of slides to let you know that You know what? No. If you save for college, it will help you a lot more than it will hurt you. And that if you don't save for college, you will be limiting some options somewhere and probably causing yourself a little more stress in the future. And I didn't say this to you just because I see some faces who were in the last session with me, but I also have a sophomore in college and a 10th grader. So I'm right in this with you. So most of what I talk about is from my 28-year history with this stuff, but I'm living it too. So it doesn't mean that your income is the biggest factor in the whole financial aid process, and so I'll show you why saving is going to be a helpful thing to you. And then another, I really have 3 pieces of pushback. That's the first one that people say to me. I'm just not going to say it because that's going to hurt me in financial aid. The second thing people say to me is, okay, I just did that Fidelity calculator, and it said college is going to cost, $378,000 when my child is going. So what? I save $100 a month, $150 a month. That's not even going to scratch the surface. Why would I even bother? And so what I'm here to tell you is that it doesn't matter. You're not going to save $378,000. You're not. And most people don't save every penny of what they're going to send, especially if they're sending their children to expensive private colleges. But every little bit you do save is going to be helpful and is going to ease the whole process. And the third thing that people sometimes say to me is, because I talk to all kinds of audiences, is I really can't save at all. My budget at the end of the month, I don't have any money to save. But I always say, even for families with really low income, saving something like $15 a month, which you can do, and you can do through the U Fund that I'll tell you about, there are other benefits besides the actual dollar amount of what ends up being saved. And those benefits are just for your kids. When your kids know you have a college savings account, it is subtly motivating, and there's all kinds of research just to show that parents who even have a college savings account with under $500 in it, but their kids know about it, end up going to college at higher rates, and they just sort of do better academically. So really, I say no excuse to not save. And here are all the ways. What saving for college is going to do, and I hope my next slides show you, it will also give more education options. So one thing you can all think about right now is sort of maybe what you want for your kids. And what's helpful too is for you and your spouse to talk about this, because I also find that sometimes people have slightly differing views on this. But do you feel totally responsible as parents that you want to cover all college costs? I talk to parents who say that to me. We decided we want to do that. We want to cover. I talk to other parents who say, I did it on my own. I want my children are going to have to do this on their own. And then I talk to a lot of parents who sort of think it's going to be a mix. Personally, I tend to think having it be a mix is really the way to go, just given college costs today. I think it's hard for parents to put the pressure on themselves to feel like they need to take care of all of that. I also think it's good for students to have some investment in that, investment in the choice, both in working up to it and afterwards. And yet, given college costs and loan debt issues, I think it's almost unrealistic for a lot of choices to have a student do it all on their own. Now, a student probably could do, that community college route or something, given the low cost of community college classes. So there are ways students can do it on their own. But for all options to be open for a student may have to go a certain route if they're going to be doing it on their own. So a mix of responsibility, I think, works the best. But again, the more that's saved, the more options that you will have as a family. Also, since borrowing in debt is a major factor in how students and how families are paying college costs, having more savings will at least be able to allow you to reduce that. Even what I've seen with some families is even having enough savings to have one student be able to go through, or have a couple of students be able to go through partially. It just, if there's no savings at all, then it really can limit the choices for students going forward. So, and then the work piece, I feel less, I really don't mind if students are working sometimes. I've had parents say to me, I don't want my student to work in college because I want them to devote all their time to studying. And I have a financial aid colleague who always said, don't ever make the mistake of thinking if they're not working that they're studying, So I don't have that much sympathy for having students work. I think it's fine for students to work, but there has been some research done that if a student works 12 hours, they can do great academically, graduate on time. As they work more than 12 hours during school, they are risking being able to finish completing their education on time, all the way up to 40 hours a week, where it may be 50-50 whether they can complete a degree in 4 years. So again, having some savings just keeps that work piece in check. And again, this minimum impact on financial aid eligibility, which I'm going to talk to you about, and then motivating your child. So let's show you, I wonder if I don't have that slide. I think I don't. So let me go back and just tell you about that minimum impact on financial aid eligibility. And I can find the slide. So when a college is looking at your ability to pay, you're going to apply using financial aid forms, and from the information you put on those forms about your income and your assets and how many people in your family and how many students in college, there's a number that pops out of that. And that number is your expected family contribution. And that's the number that a college assumes not assumes, but expects you to pay toward those college costs. So if a college costs $60,000 and your expected family contribution is $30,000, then they expect you to pay $30,000, and then they can give you some financial aid to meet up to that $60,000. So an example I sometimes use is, let's say your expected family contribution is $30,000. What does that mean? Well, that means if your student attends UMass Amherst, which right now costs about $28,000, and you're expected to pay $30,000, that means that at UMass Amherst, you won't receive any need-based financial aid. You'll be on your own in paying for that. But if your student goes to Northeastern, which costs $60,000, and your expected family contribution is $30,000, you may receive some financial aid help. So that's how that works. Yeah?
So but that doesn't explain the assets. It doesn't explain how much money
Yes.
you put down along with your income.
Yes. So on those forms, you put down information about your cash, savings, checking, any investments, and depending on the school, different colleges require different forms. Every college requires the FAFSA, which asks minimal information. They don't ask you about your home, for example, so that's not considered an asset. They also don't ask about your retirement. Some colleges who require different forms actually do ask you about your home, and so then the equity in your home would be considered an asset along with your cash, savings, checking, and investments. Your assets are factored in at a rate of 5.6%. So if you total up all of your assets and they total, let's say they total $100,000 just to make it easy, then that increases what you're expected to pay to college by $5,600. So two families, let's say, same income. Both families have $150,000 in income, let's say. And then one family has $100,000 in assets, and the other family doesn't have any assets. This family with the assets, $100,000 of assets, would be expected to pay $5,600 more toward college costs. So it is factored in. So all of your fears about thinking, well, if I save, it's going to get counted. It does get counted. But it gets counted in a fairly small way. So, yeah.
Is that the 5.6%, is that just the FAFSA form, or is that?
That's
for all?
profile too. So that's all the colleges use that 5.6% of your assets. So it's a fairly reasonable, you know, maybe I keep skipping. Let me see if I have it here. No, I can show you. Let me show you my other presentation. I'm going to show it to you. Yes. I have so many presentations for different lengths and. Let's see if I can find that. Here we go. Good. All right. Okay, yes, so your parent assets are counted up to 5.6% in the formula versus parent income is considered, parent income, taxes get subtracted out, a family allowance gets subtracted out. But then after that, any discretionary income, anywhere from 0 to 47% of that is expected to be used toward college costs. So that's what makes those expected family contributions pretty high. I mean, most of the time when I talk to a parent and they tell me, I did those calculators, my expected family contribution is X, it's always an amount that seems too high. But most of it is coming from income versus parent assets, including 529 plans, prepaid tuition plans, cash, savings, checking, the equity in your home if it's asked for, which can be a big asset, all treated at that 5.6% level. And then you can also see student income and assets are treated at a little bit of a higher rate. So if money is in the student's name, like the student is the account owner, it's treated a little higher. Yeah.
The grandparent owned,
Oh, yes.
can you tell, sorry, I'm trying to read that.
Yes.
I'm talking to you. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that is a little bit tricky, but so if you as a parent own the 529 plan and have your student as a beneficiary, that is treated at 5.6%, and that's how it gets counted in the financial aid process. If a grandparent owns the 529 plan and has your student as a beneficiary, it's kind of back and forth. I'll just describe it to you. So the first year you're applying for financial aid, that grandparent is the owner. They could change the beneficiary. I kind of joke and say they could get mad at your child and give it to another child. So it doesn't really belong to your child. So until your student receives the money. So when you're applying for financial aid, you don't put a grandparent-owned 529 plan on the financial aid form at all, which is nice. However, what happens is that second year, if a grandparent takes $10,000 out of the 529 plan and pays the college bill of your student, then when you're applying for financial aid that next year, it will say any money's paid on your behalf. And then it gets listed in the student income column, which has the potential of affecting financial aid that second year. But here's what I'm going to say. Most of the time, I would say, first of all, it's a good idea for the grandparents to keep saving, because you don't know what those financial aid packages are going to be. Maybe your student, we haven't even talked about this, doesn't get need-based aid but gets merit-based aid that won't get affected. It would only be if it was going to be affected that you would maybe want to think about not using that money right then if it was going to make a significant impact in the financial aid package. But I'd say in a good percentage of cases, it's not going to make a difference. So it would be terrible to say to your parents, stop saving and all of that. Oh, kind of a workaround is that, because this is all looking back, if grandparents just use their money out of the 529 to pay for the student in the junior or senior year, the questions that it's asking, it's never going to get back. So my advice would be, if if your student gets a significant need-based financial aid package, just remember that I said this, which is you just want to think about when you use the money from the grandparent, and it probably helps to postpone it.
Is another workaround, I know Fidelity has the ability to, you set up a page for your child and people can make contributions to your plan. So grandparents, if they're, instead of saving their own, they can just make a monthly contribution to your plan.
Exactly, exactly. And a lot of families choose that. And then everything completely gets treated at that 5%, 6%, exactly.
So is that something you'd suggest over a grandparent?
You know, I would, it's kind of a personal preference thing. Some families like that because also then the money really does belong to you. And you know it's going to go to your child. You know how it's going to be treated. But there's some grandparents, for whatever reason, that would rather keep it in theirs. And I think that could still be fine, but just, and it may have no effect at all. But just know that if your student gets a really good need-based package that first year, you want to think about when to use the grandparent money to minimize any effect. You know. And now this presentation, I'm glad, might have a couple of other slides that I want to show you about why. Let's see if I can see. Didn't have the one I needed, but I guess what I wanted to say is that, let's say your, I wish I could show it to you, just see. Back to our other one. So let's say your student applies to an Ivy League college, okay? And if you were in my last session, you know it's so competitive. You know the numbers of students who are, but Ivy League colleges do something that they call meet full need. So what they do is if Harvard costs $60,000. And your expected family contribution is $30,000, then your family receives a $30,000 financial aid package from Harvard, right to the dollar, because they promise to meet the full need of all students. There are very few colleges that are able to do that these days. Only about 60 in the whole country do that. So what most colleges do is they do their best, but they don't necessarily meet full need. So if your student applies to Northeastern, which costs $60,000, your expected family contribution is $30,000, the student could receive a $20,000 package, or $23,000, or $16,000, or something getting you toward there, but may not meet that full need, and that's really common. And so really, then as a family, you're having to come up with the expected family contribution, any gap. If you haven't saved, it's going to be a struggle because you're going to need to use your savings, your current income, possible borrowing. So that's why when you're thinking about your savings being treated at 5.6%, slightly increasing what you're expected to pay. But if you don't have that savings, how are you going to meet those costs? And that's what I see, that for the most part, students are going to have some gap in the package. And you will be figuring out as a family how to come up with that. And if savings is off the table, it's a big stress to have it all out of your income or having to borrow loans. So what else? Someone was going to ask me something when I ran over here.
I was just asking about the grandparent thing.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have multiple children and say that grandparents use the funds for, say, your oldest senior year, does it affect the application for your younger child the following year?
No, that's a great question. No, because on your younger child, I mean, the good news is when you have two, it's good and bad, right? When you have two students in college at once, you're more eligible for financial aid because it all gets split, but you're also paying 2 tuitions. So it kind of balances it out. But if the grandparents are using some money for one child, that piece does not get seen at all on the other child's financial aid application. Yeah,
So the contribution hits the child's income, not the parents.
exactly, yes. Yeah, which for that purpose is a positive, right.
And you're saying grandparents, but it would be applicable to any relative,
Aunt,
right?
uncle, or anyone else, yes.
And the beneficiaries on the grandparent, well, they can change it between families. You know, I know my parents set one up for my nephews, but they went to the Marines.
Yes.
So now it's gonna be like it.
Yes, that's good. Yeah, and truthfully, you know, I had a grandparent whose grandchild was going to the University of San Diego and really was just getting, and let's talk about merit aid too, was just getting some small merit scholarship and a Stafford loan, the federal loan. And he was all up in arms that, you know, about the fact that he had this 529, that should he not. But the result, when we figured it out, is that piece wasn't going to change that student's aid at all. That student did not have a full financial aid package that the financial aid officer was going to have to work around. I mean, the student just received a little bit of aid, and the grandparents' addition, even adding it to the student's income, wasn't affecting things at all. And that's more what I see. The situations where it gets tricky are if a student receives a lot of need-based aid at a school that is really meeting a lot of the needs, so that the financial aid award is really bumping up against the expected family parent contribution, all of that. So it's rare. So I still think it's usually still a great thing for the grandparents to be saving. So one other piece, I didn't talk about merit aid too much. I just want to mention that because I see more and more merit aid these days. And when I'm talking, you know, with certain, we always talk about the need-based aid and how much is going to be expected of you to pay toward college costs based on your finances. But colleges are giving out a lot of their merit-based aid to bring in their classes every year. And merit-based aid is not just going to the football star or the valedictorian. It really is going toward a good portion of the top of their class. Because a small private college that costs $52,000 knows that they need to use some merit aid to attract the level of student that they want to bring in. And so anything that makes your student a good candidate, a strong candidate for admission to a certain college in a certain year, can put them in line for some merit-based aid. So that one strategy is just to make sure that your student has a good college list so that they have some choices and you get to look at the aid packages from all of the different schools and really factor that in. So you will see your one student, your one family, and you'll get aid packages back that look very, very different from college to college. So that's the other reason that those huge numbers that people say to me, it says college is going to cost, you know, $410,000. People aren't necessarily paying those huge numbers. There usually are all those pieces that I showed you. Deanna.
Does the merit aid affect your other aid that you would receive? Do they see that and go, oh, you're getting this, so this is less?
Great question. No. I mean, it does get factored into the package. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have any, say you have financial need of just about $10,000, and then you get a $20,000 merit-based award, well, yes, I guess that's taking care of it. But if you get a merit-based award of $8,000 and your financial need was $12,000 or something, you can still get more need-based aid. So a lot of times families will get some merit and some need together.
And what is the average that you see on like merit, or is it across the board?
It really ranges. You know, I see Dean's scholarships, president's awards, things like that, sometimes in the 20s, $20,000 here. And then I also see a lot smaller types of merit boosts to things as well. Yeah.
Is that coming more from public or private?
More from private,
Yeah.
more from private. Yeah, but there are, as I think we talked about in the last session, out-of-state schools sometimes do things to attract out-of-state students. And, UMass Amherst, sometimes to its Commonwealth College or its strongest students, there are still merit-based awards available. And so one thing I'd say, but again, I feel really strongly about not overstressing our kids, overthinking this process, and yet the stronger our students are academically, right, the more choices they have and possibly the more merit-based aid they can receive. So, but again, I mean, everyone can do this with their own children the way they do it. I guess instead of sort of pushing our students to do more and more and more so that they'll get more, it's just more letting them know that they will have more choices and options of schools, probably the better their GPA is and all of that. So just kind of putting it a little more back in their court as far as what they want for themselves and how hard they want to work and things like that. Now, should I get talk about the specific? I'll just talk a little bit about, well, one thing I'll say is, I definitely say, no matter what, no matter how you feel about any of this, although I hope you understand how important savings is, no matter how you feel about it, I would say you definitely should open a college savings account. So in other words, a savings account that you designate for college for your kids. And for a few reasons. One, you can do it for $50. And then what you can do is you can decide from that point on, do you want to just save once in a while if you happen to have some extra money, or do you want to set it up and save automatically every month, a small amount? But you can make all those decisions. But just by virtue of having the account open, you can also let family and friends know that you have an account open. This is a picture of the gifting page from Fidelity, where you can set it up with a cute picture of your child. And I always say that my kids are too old for me to really use this. But when they're cute and young, and if a birthday, a holiday, instead of that 7th big plastic toy or something, you could say to friends, relatives, what would be a great gift is a small contribution to the college savings fund. And here it is here, nice and easy. You can just actually, it's so easy. You can take a picture of your check now and deposit money into here. So, if for no other reason, to have other people fund your college savings account. And when your children get old enough to earn their own money, I set things up early on that my kids knew that they were going to give a little bit of money to their college savings account too. So, opening it, I think, is a definite, and then you can decide what your strategy is going to be to fund it. And this just shows that there's going to be a calculator on our website with this data, just so you can kind of figure it out. What can you save monthly? How old is your child? And at a 7% interest rate, how much money you can have when they're about to go to college. So just to stretch yourself. And I will share the personal story that starting 10 years ago when I started working at MEFA and was out with parents of seniors looking at their award letters. We have this program called Paying the College Bill. And I would look at all the award letters from all of these different colleges, and I would go home every year and increase what I was saving for my kids. And I actually just did it for my 10th grader the other day, because I just know I don't want to be stressed. I'll be stressed anyway, but, so anyway, it adds up, as you know. And I know we're getting near the end, but I just want to quickly say, so a couple of good, however you do it, however you designate, this is a college savings account, I want to save, do that. 2 options here in Massachusetts. One is the U Fund, which is the Massachusetts 529 plan. You can save in any 529 plan across the whole country, and a website, savingforcollege.com or .org, compares all of the plans and all of that, and collegesavings.org also. So you can look into what's the best option. But they all kind of work the same way, where you put money into this account, and it grows without any taxes on earnings to you. And then if you take the money out and use it for college expenses, a wide range of college expenses at a wide range of college options, you never pay any interest on any taxes on any of the interest that you earned. So that makes it better than a regular savings account. And again, you can start it, open it for $50 or $15 a month. It's very flexible. You're the owner, you choose a beneficiary, you can change the beneficiary, use it, as I said, for a wide range of institutions and for a wide range of costs, including books, supplies, equipment. And so you would go to Fidelity.com to open that, and it's an online process, yeah.
Is there an annual limit to how much you can contribute?
Well, so $14,000 is the gift tax limit. So, that's just an amount that people can keep in mind.
That's per parent too, I think.
It is per parent, yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we were encouraged when my kids were little to do one in another state.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now, does it make sense to have two? Are there benefits from different state ones?
Well, today, I would say it doesn't matter. But as of January 1st, there's actually a new state tax deduction that's going to happen here in Massachusetts. So what that is that if you save money in the U fund, you up to $1,000 or $2,000 married couple, you can receive a state tax deduction. Now that was never the case, so it really didn't matter where you saved. So if that tax deduction would make a difference and be important for you, you might want to start saving in the Massachusetts
Well, would it make
one.
sense to increase the out-of-state one or open a second one, I guess, is what I'm trying to figure out.
It's really equal,
Yeah.
right? And it's, are you happy with the returns and the management and everything in your out-of-state one? Then that's fine. But just if you wanted to get that tax deduction, you could add the Massachusetts one.
Some states match it too, up to a certain amount. So my grandparents, their grandparents
Yes.
are in Maine, and so they match it, so we put some money in there because that's.
Yes, yes. Yeah. But that was the other piece that, that if it were you, since you don't live in Maine, you probably couldn't take advantage, but the grandparent piece.
The grandparent can do
yes.
it, yeah.
Exactly. So a couple of other.
I was just going to mention the tax
Oh,
deduction.
the tax, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that tax section is for 2017?
17.
Or not for 2016?
Exactly. So yeah, so that you look at all of them, but that would be another reason. And also, so the U fund is managed by Fidelity. It does have sort of on the lower side of fees, so it's definitely a good plan. So just a kind of personal preference there, but the tax deduction kind of might be a reason to go with this one. One quick piece, it's very easy to open online. They've made it a very simple process. The one question that might just take a little bit longer is you have to decide how you want to invest the money. And you have lots of choices. Most families choose what's called an age-based fund, or portfolio, which you might know from some of your retirement accounts, but that when your children are younger, it starts out that the portfolio is more in stocks, with a little more risk, but hopefully a chance to grow at a higher rate, a faster rate, and then it gets more conservative as your student gets closer to college-going rates, so that it would fluctuate less at that stage. So that's kind of a set it and forget it, let the Fidelity fund managers, take care of that. But there are also customized ways to invest. And there's even an FDIC insured option as well if you didn't want to take any risk. And I'll quickly just mention this other one because I know we're bumping up against it. But again, I love the U Fund, I love 529 plans, I think they are a really good way to save. Quickly, I'll just mention the U Plan, because that's somewhat unique to Massachusetts. There are other prepaid tuition plans in the country, but each one operates really uniquely, I'd say. So the way the U Plan works in Massachusetts, and this, you can also get the tax deduction for putting your money in here as well. It's that we have 80 participating colleges and universities in Massachusetts. And you would put money in, I'm going to say quote unquote today, and you would lock in today 2016 tuition and fee rates at the colleges. And you would, that percentage that you lock in today would stay locked in for the year that you send your kids to college. So I'll just give sort of an exaggerated example. If today UMass Amherst tuition and fees is $10,000 and you had $5,000 and you were trying to figure out how to spend that most wisely and you put $5,000 in the U Plan, then you'd be locking in 50% of tuition and fees at UMass Amherst. And then if UMass Amherst costs $20,000 by the time your child goes, then your $5,000 would have become $10,000. So, because you're locking in 50%. So for parents with multiple children, you have a lot, that are young, this can be a great way to kind of beat out that inflation that college costs continue to go up. This is just tuition and fees, not all the room and board, books, supplies, all of that. And the way this is set up right now, we don't have a way you can save monthly. We have a one time of year, May, June, is the enrollment period for this, and you can put money into the plan. You don't choose a college now, you just receive a list then, a report that shows what your money is worth at all of the 80 participating colleges and universities. And here they are. And if at the time your child is going to college, they decide to go to North Carolina, then you would just call MEFA and you would take your money out, you would cash out your U Plan, and you would receive the money you put in to start with, any money you put in, plus CPI interest that has accrued over the years. So, you don't lose your money if they decide to do something else. So that is an option for some families, and some families love this and have it really good luck with having saved in it for a long period of time and having everything saved and ready. What I would say is, just in the interest of time, go on our website. We have a video that describes it, and you can also, if you are interested in it before May, you can call me. We can talk about it further.
That's a quick question. On
Yeah.
the plan, can you change children as beneficiaries?
Yes, so you can change the beneficiary on the U Plan as well. The only kind of tricky piece there is when you save money in the U Plan, you're locking in the percentage of tuition for the year that, say your oldest child is going to college in 2030. You're locking in for 2030. If that child does something else and you want to change the beneficiary and that student is going in 2032 or something, the lock-in is still with that 2030. So you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yeah. Let's see what else.
Can you use both? Can you contribute to both?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I do, of course, I'm just working here, but I do. And truthfully, I think they're both great and for different reasons. I guess just as I sort of laid it out to you, I would say I recommend 529 plan, the U Fund, to everyone because, opening it for that $50 and all that. And then I sort of say this is a good option depending on your situation. So I would say, I think it's time for you to go, but I did bring a couple of handouts. This is about our, all the ways to stay in touch with MEFA and the U Plan and U Fund. I left my business cards and some admissions financial aid information as well.
Oh, you're welcome.
And good luck.